Welcome to episode 5 of Senior Care Insights, a podcast dedicated to helping you navigate the world of senior care. I'm Dr. Deborah Moerland. I'm your host and the owner of First Light Home Care of Greater Lansing, Michigan, and First Light Home Care of Brighton. Join us as we share valuable information about senior care in the Mid-Michigan area. First of all, we have Gary Easterling, who is a veterans service officer who will be talking to us about veterans benefits and what they can do to get different benefits, including home care as well as aid and attendance and other things. Then we have Matt Paxton. Matt is a downsizing and cleaning expert, a speaker, an author, radio personality, and the host of the 2-time Emmy-nominated television show Legacy List with Matt Paxton. And our final interview is going to be with Audrey Kingdon. Audrey works for Harmony Cares Hospice and is the enterprise sales specialist, and she's here to discuss myths on hospice care. So welcome to all of our guests. Welcome, Gary. Nice to see you again.
You too, Deb. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Gary's a 25-year retired Army veteran, and he has 14 years experience in assisting veterans with getting their VA benefits. And like I said before, he's the director of Veteran Services, and he manages 23 veteran service officers throughout the state. So it's very nice to have you on the show, Gary. All right. So first of all, what is a veteran service officer?
Well, Deb, a veteran service officer is an accredited person with the Department of Veterans Affairs that can help and assist veterans and their families through all the VA red tape. Anything they want to do with the VA, a veteran service officer can help them through that process.
Okay. And you've been doing this for quite a while, so you know everything that needs to be done for any veteran who's looking for services. Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't say everything. All right. We're always learning this job. VA and Congress change the rules and the laws all the time. So it's always a lot to do. But we know where to find that information and who to talk to and how to navigate through all the problems we have with the VA.
Okay. So what is a VA compensation?
Well, there's a VA compensation, and a lot of people get this mixed up. When they think that they're getting something from the VA, they normally call it a pension, but it's actually called compensation. When somebody they get an injury or an illness or something that happens to them while they were served, then they can be compensated for those. For instance, I usually give the analogy of an airborne ranger jumping out of an airplane all those times. And then they get bad knees, bad back, and it still bothers them today, then we can get them compensated for their injuries. Another good example is a Vietnam veteran served in Vietnam. They were exposed to Agent Orange. So Agent Orange, there's numerous illnesses and diseases that exposure to that has caused, diabetes, neuropathy, different types of cancers, heart disease. So because they were in country Vietnam, we can get them compensated for their illnesses. That is basically what compensation is.
Okay. And what is a typical compensation amount? Is it a monthly payment, or is it a full amount given to the veteran?
It's a monthly payment. It can go anywhere. The VA has percentages that they rate veterans on the percentage of the disability. So it could be a 0%, which is no compensation, but they can still get health care benefits with a 0%, but all the way up to 100%. So somebody at a 10% disability gets roughly a little over $200 a month. If it's a 100% disabled veteran, they can get over $3,500 a month. So it varies on the percentages.
Okay, that's good to know. So what is a VA pension then?
VA pension is it's a program the VA has to help our low income veterans. So if a veteran's under the age of 65 and they're unable to work because of a disability that don't have to be anything related to the service, it could have happened after the service. But if they're unable to work and they're low income based on the poverty level set by Congress, then they could qualify for a stipend to help them get up to where the poverty level is. So, for instance, I have a veteran that I assisted. He had an illness. We applied for a pension. He was only getting $800 a month from Social Security. So we got him the VA with the pension. Gave him another $600 on top of that to bring him up. So basically it supplements their income. So then a veteran over the age of 65 or older does not have to have a disability, just the means, just a low income, and we can help them supplement their income with the pension.
Okay. All right. As you know, First Light works with a lot of veterans. We provide the home care for them. Many of them don't realize that home care is an option for them when they have, illnesses that require help with their ADLs. So how would someone go about getting information, or what are the qualifications for a person to get the home care?
So they have to be, there's different types of home care. So the VA hospitals have a home care program that if they're enrolled in the VA healthcare system, then they can go through the home care specialist at the hospital and go through their qualifications. The other way is to, and we've talked about this before, Deb, is about aid and attendance, where they can get help if they qualify and they don't meet, they can't do some of the ADLs, assisted daily living. Then the VA, if they're receiving compensation or a pension, they could qualify for aid and attendance, which is extra money to pay somebody to come in and help them. And it also can go to that money can also go to help pay for a nursing home, assisted living facilities, and so on.
Okay. And what are the specific qualifications for aid and attendance?
Have to have either compensation or a pension. Okay. And then we apply for the aid and attendance, but they have to have that need. They have to have that qualification of needing somebody else to assist them. For instance, if they can't feed themselves, they can't bathe themselves, or if they're bedridden or housebound, then they can meet those qualifications to get that benefit. Okay.
And what other types of benefits do you help people get when they come in and speak with you?
Well, there's you name it. Anything the VA offers, we can help them with. Everything from compensation and pension and aid and attendance to housebound, to help them with their education benefits, the GI Bill. We can help them with the National Cemetery. We can help them navigate through the VA healthcare system. So anything, we could help them get their certificate for home loans. So anything you can think of that if the veteran needs something, we can help them. And also, if it's not VA related, we can. I know a lot of people here in the state of Michigan that we can help with homelessness. We can help them pay their rent. We can help them get a new roof. There's all kinds of things out there for our veterans that people just don't know who to contact, or they contact somebody and they get pushed off to somebody else, and then they push them off to somebody else. I would tell you that a veteran service officer will get you to the right person and make sure that person is the one that can take care of you.
Right. I know a lot of veterans get ramps put on their homes.
Right.
They get all of their supplies, a hospital bed, everything. And that's something you also could help them with if
That is
needed.
correct. That is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Senior Care Insights. Our next guest will be Matt Paxton from the Legacy List. And we totally appreciate your information, and hopefully we can help some more veterans in our community. Time is valuable, especially when it comes to caring for a loved one. Instead of spending your day juggling caregiving tasks, you could actually spend quality time with your family, enjoying the memories, playing games, catching up on work, or simply relaxing and getting recharged. A client review stated, "We used First Light Services to care for my mom for almost 3 years in her home. We were very lucky to find such loving and compassionate caregivers. They were knowledgeable about mom's issues and truly cared about her well-being, as well as helping the family learn how to adapt to her changes. Our caregivers are professionally trained, background checked, must pass a drug test, and are compassionate. We offer flexible plans tailored to meet your family's needs, ensuring that you get time back in your day without compromising the quality of care. Don't let another day slip away being a caregiver. Make the call today and let First Light Home Care of Greater Lansing illuminate the pathway to exceptional home care and give you back the gift of time." Welcome back to Senior Care Insights, Episode 5. Our next guest is Matt Paxton. And Matt Paxton is a TV show host of The Legacy List. And he's also been on The Hoarder Show. And he's been helping people with their stuff for a long time. So welcome, Matt.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on the show. So let us know how you got into helping other people with all of their stuff.
Oh, I think like a lot of us that end up in some form of caregiving, something happened to my family. When I was 24, my dad, my stepdad, and both of my grandfathers all passed away in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
And I had to clean all our houses. And it wasn't like I had this great vision or anything. And by the way, I'm 49, so I've been doing this for 25 years, but back then there was just nobody available. And so I wasn't working, and I was kind of a bum. And I started cleaning out everybody's house, and it turns out I loved it. And I didn't know how much I would enjoy it. And my grandfather had always said, if something's really difficult, do that as a job, because other people will pay you to do it because they don't want to do it. And I was like cleaning the house, and I'm like, this is what he means. Like, this is really hard, and other people aren't going to want to do it. And so I took his advice, and I've been helping people clean out their houses for 25 years now.
Okay. Well, how did that lead into the hoarders and what you're doing now?
Well, with the hoarding side of it, I was just fast. Once I get into something, I'm really into it, whatever it is. And I just like the good stories, like I love, people don't keep things because of the things. We keep the things because of the people attached to the things, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I was a kid, and if you're our age, if you're 40 to 60, we were the last ones that visited on a porch. We were the last ones to have daily technology in our lives. And so for me, life was about hanging out with my grandparents. I'd spend all summer with them and, on their ranch. And so when I was helping people, it was like I was back with my grandparents, and I was just so happy. And so I found the people that really needed the help were the hoarding ones. They needed it more than anybody. And so it was actually a business decision. It wasn't an ethical decision. I didn't mind it. And in fact, I enjoyed the gross stuff. I thought it was awesome, and still do, and I think it's amazing. And I loved the stories, right? And then what I didn't know was there's these incredible people. Hoarders are brilliant. They're really smart. Mm-hmm. And hoarding is a mental disorder. They can't help it. That's not an opinion. That's a scientific fact. It's a mental disorder, and something bad has happened to them, tragic, and trauma. And that's how it comes out. It's stuff. It could be alcohol. It could be drugs. It could be whatever. But for them, it's shopping. And so for me, I found, man, these are fascinating, good people that need love, not disdain. And so I started just helping hoarders, and I love it. And I've been helping seniors and hoarders, two separate groups, but they both have too much stuff that's holding them back from the life they want. Mm-hmm. And so I've just been really lucky to do it. And I'll tell you this, there is never a day that's boring. And I hear something new every day, and I fall asleep in 5 seconds because I am exhausted, and I love it. It's a super fun job.
Oh yeah, I totally understand that. Totally understand that, working with the aging. So why do you focus on aging though?
For me, I mean, aging is the aging clientele is just, it's, well, there's 100 reasons. I mean, one, it's good business, right? Like that's a growing business. Do that. Two, they really appreciate your help. Three, they can afford your services, which is kind of nice. Four, to me, so I'm an entrepreneur and I'm on TV, but I do this, it's my business. And what I found is, the people that need, like, you just got to go help people that need help. And if you do that, then the rest of it works out, right? Like if you really, truly just give in to helping people, then you'll have enough money to pay all your bills. And so I will just say that for the aging, I found that it was I think it's because they're more mature, obviously. With age comes maturity, and seniors tend to ask for help. My aging clients say, "I need your help. Can you come help me?" And so my book's full. Like my week is full by the time that the aging has asked me for help. And so I don't ever get to everybody else, and I'm okay with that. I just love, the stories for me are everything, and I love it. And I think Dr. Moerland, you were in the room one time when I gave a speech about hugging a check. Right? For me, I got the best job in the world. I get a hug. And then I get a check, right? Like there's no better job, and then I hear all these incredible stories. And so I love it. I just love it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am with the home care agency, because I go out and I meet the clients and I do their assessments, and it's all about finding out how I can help them the best. So, and I'll go visit, and I'm thinking I'm stopping in for 5 minutes, and it's 2.5 hours later.
Absolutely.
So it's just like what I like to do, just hanging out with them and learning about what they do and all of that. So, and we've had quite a few people who are actually in that category of being a senior and a hoarder. So it just happens. And
yeah, home care, like it's one of my associations with First Light, which you're associated with. I mean, I found for so many of my hoarders, they actually needed home care after we cleaned the house. And it's funny, you get rid of all the stuff, and then all of a sudden there's space for the actual problem, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm jumping between physical and emotional here, but like you can blame, when someone's struggling with hoarding, you can blame all their problems on hoarding. But when you clean out the house and there's no more hoarding to blame, then you actually find the real roots of all these problems, right? And maybe you might have an accessibility issue, you might have a mobility issue, and so like for us, people are always like, why is a guy from Hoarders on here? Well, man, when I'm cleaning a hoarded house, I have to have resources for my clients afterwards. So I've got to talk to care managers. I've got to home care workers, ramp installations, age in place. I mean, there's so many different groups in aging, because now that person finally has a chance to live again, and we've got to get the resources that allows them to actually get their life back.
Definitely. And so what does stuff have to do with caregiving?
Well, I think the stuff is a lot of times, it holds us back from getting the care we need if it's too much stuff. The other side is that to me, using stuff during caregiving is like the best thing you can do. You got to keep, if you're a caregiver, you got to keep the person talking, and you got to keep them moving. And I tell everybody, man, you've got every person that works in home care or caregiving, they have a chance to hear stories, and they have a chance to talk to the client on an hourly basis. And so I think, man, look around and find the stuff. And you see something you've never seen before, ask the client, what is it? And you'll be amazed the quality of conversation you have. And look, I mean, I don't have the data in front of me, but if you look at the data, I mean, the quality of care and the quality of the life increases when there's positive interaction, communication. And so I tell everybody all the time, man, it's really the easiest thing in front of us. I mean, if you're a caregiver, look around, whether you're at home, a free home care, a free family caregiver, or you're a paid home caregiver, whoever you are, if you're there to help someone, look around. And if you've never seen something, then ask about it, and it'll be new, and you'll have a phenomenal conversation, and you'll be amazed an hour goes away like that.
Oh, it does. I met a man who was a photographer, and he had all this equipment in his home, and he had these beautiful cardinals that he had taken a photograph of, and I ended up purchasing that from him. He had dementia, but his wife sold me a copy of it. But every time I look at that picture,
print.
Yeah, like he made the print. It was gorgeous. And just talking, he couldn't remember anything but photography. So we just talked about what he did and his pictures. And every time I would go over there, I would see the same pictures, but he was having a good time showing those to me. So it was a great time.
I was helping a client one time. This is a great story. And, I was inspired by my dad passing. That's why I got into this. But my dad was a very well-known local artist in Virginia, where I grew up. And I was cleaning a house out, and I walk into this of a retired professor, and he had moved on to senior living. And I walk into this room, and I see one of my dad's paintings. And my dad's paintings were very collectible. And I had never been able, I often get bid out of my dad's paint. Like, people will outbid me, and I can't buy it, right? And the ethics of home cleaning is you can't buy anything off somebody. It has to go to auction, right? You have to win it at auction. And so I'm looking at my dad's painting, the one I do not have, and I've never seen. My brother had one, but I've never seen it, to buy. And so I contact the family. They're like, "Oh, you can have it." I'm like, "I can't actually. I really wish I could." I was like, "Hopefully I'll win it at auction," right? And I ended up not winning it. Someone else outbid me. But when they came to pick it up, the guy realized who I was, and he sold it to me for what he bought it for. But it was really cool to because then I was able to connect with the actual client. And I was like, "How did you get it?" And he's like, "Oh, I knew your father." He goes, "I didn't realize you were helping me." And so we ended up talking about my dad, and he told me stories about my dad that I'd never heard. And it was just such a joy. And you never know. I almost preach this. I get to do it on TV and I do it in my books, but I really love to just tell people, you never know the life, the fascinating, amazing life that the person sitting in front of you has had. And they probably don't think it's very interesting. Right. Mm-hmm. But you and I do. And so I tell people all the time, you'd be amazed how fascinating your life is. It's not interesting to you because you lived it. But for the rest of us, we've just blown away. And I think that's one thing that caregiving is so cool to do. You can talk to your clients every day, all day, and you never know what you're going to hear. I just think it's great.
Mm-hmm. So what's your favorite story you've heard from a client then?
Oh my gosh. So many. I had one guy, he was really cranky, and he could never be positive. My whole thing is just relentless positivity. And I go, "Man, what's going on, dude? Why are you so angry today?" And we start talking, and I later find out, he goes, "Man, I was the 5th guy on the moon." This is about 20 years ago, by the way. And he goes, "I was the 5th guy on the moon." He goes, "You ever heard of me?" And I said, "No, sir." He goes, "The first 4 have schools named after them." And he goes, "You've never heard of me?" And I said, "No, sir, I haven't." I was like, but let's talk about it. We start talking, and I always ask the question. I say, "Hey, before I go, what do you want the world to know about you?" And he goes, "Oh man, I shouldn't have gone to the moon." I go, "What?" And he goes, "I spent my whole life trying to go to the moon." And he goes, "By the time you get back," he goes, "your kids don't know who you are." And he goes, should have stayed home, man." And I started bawling, and I was just like, I go, "That's your advice?" He goes, "Totally, man." He goes, "Just stay home." He's like, "You only got the kids for so long." And I gotta tell you, I had really young kids at the time. And it changed how I live. I now have 7 kids, and I live my life by that advice. I do travel a lot for work, but man, I try to bring my kids with me whenever I can, and it's awesome. But I'm trying to think. I have so many amazing stories. I'm trying to think of a really quick good one. They're all so incredible. I think I had one lady that we found a picture of her. You've heard the story, I think. We found a picture of this lady. It was a picture of a lady, she's 80 something when I'm helping her, but it's a picture of her when she's 18 and she's, or 22, and she's stunning. And the granddaughter who's sitting next to me, she goes, "Who's that? That's not Grandpa." And not Grandpa is the important part of the story, right? And so she's like, "Oh, that was my lover, Armando." And we're like, "What?" The whole room, we're like, "Excuse me?" And she's like, "Oh, I met him the summer that I taught at MIT." She goes, "I was an adjunct art history professor. And she goes, he was a Spanish professor. And she goes, we met, we had a torrid love affair." And she goes, "And then he moved back to Spain. And the next summer I met your father or your grandfather." And then the granddaughter goes, "Wait a minute, you taught at MIT?" And she was like, "Yeah, I was the first female professor at MIT." And so this picture of Armando, her lover, is how that her granddaughter found out that her grandmother was amazing. And I just thought that was super cool. And like I run into amazing things like that all the time. Most people want to know the grossest things I've seen, but honestly, to me, it's the coolest things that I've ever seen.
Well, how do you get people to separate from their stuff? I mean,
well, it's funny. Yeah.
We've had people and, you try to get them to throw away a little bit here and there and try to repurpose things and donate, but some people just don't want to get rid of it.
So some people flat are they're just not gonna. And so sometimes it's not going to happen. You're just going to, and in that situation, you just have to make enough space for accessibility, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how can we make enough space to give them the care that they need? Sometimes donation does work. I try to focus more on donation than selling. The minute you put a price into it, it gets a lot more difficult. And it's never about the money, by the way. They don't really care about the money. They just don't want to let go of the stuff. So they use an excuse. So I do what we've been doing the last 20 minutes here. I get people to tell the stories. And I'm like, tell me the stories, tell me the stories, tell me the stories. And you found that people tend to, the more they tell the stories, believe it or not, they either decide we're definitely going to keep it or we're definitely going to get rid of it. And I think the biggest misconception about downsizing is people think that nobody wants their stuff. And in fact, that was the original title of my book, Nobody Wants Your Stuff. But the publisher wouldn't let me use it. And I promise you, people do want, if you're listening right now, people do want your stuff. They just maybe don't want that stuff. They don't want like the dining room, right? They might want something different. And so I tell people, if you tell the stories, your family members will figure out what they actually want if they know the stories. And it's just really important. You can see it was going below the screen right now. My TV show is called Legacy List. It's on PBS, and that's literally what the show is about. And you can watch it. You can watch all 5 seasons at mylegacylist.com or on PBS. But it literally, we go to 40 some families that we've gone around the country and we hear their stories and they tell us everything about it. And it's just such a positive experience. And then they're able to let go of the stuff because they've celebrated the person and they're ready to let go of that space and move on to the next thing. And I'm making it sound a lot simpler than it is. But you got to start somewhere, right? And I'll tell you, if you watch the show, you'll actually see some tips and some abilities to how to communicate, how to tell those stories, and how to start letting go of the stuff.
Okay. So what do you want the listener to think about after this podcast?
Oh, for me, I want you to think about, always say, I hope you laughed a little bit. I hope you had a little bit of fun. And I want you who do you want to call? Who do you want to call and either tell a story to or listen to a story? I will tell you so many if you are a caregiver right now, it's probably the person you're caring for. But most of these people that are not going to be with us in 10, 15 years, they have incredible stories and they're the only ones that have those stories. So what I really want y'all to think about is, hey man, who do I need to call? And how am I going to write down that information? Because I really, or how am I going to record it? We just want those stories to live on beyond us. I mean, I tell stories about my dad all the time, and my dad has been dead for 25 years. Yet every one of my kids can tell every story about my dad, and they get annoyed when I tell the story because they know it, right? And I will say that means I'm doing it right. If my kids are annoyed and know every story about my father, then I did a good job, because that means my dad lives on forever. And it doesn't matter what stuff we're talking about. We're talking about the man, the myth, and the legend. And that's a legacy, right? That's how I want to live on.
It definitely is. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for joining us on our show. And I'm sure some people will start watching the Legacy List if they haven't already. And I'm looking forward to watching some more episodes myself. Maybe I'll learn something to help some other people in our senior community.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just thank you so much for having me. And season 5 is coming out in January. Can't wait for everybody to watch it.
All right, we will, definitely. We'll be right back with Audrey Kingdon.
The friendship, the closeness that two people can have.
My caretaker just does everything I ask her to do.
Motivates me to the extent that I know that I can live another day.
She's my transportation. When we shop, groceries, she fixes my hair for me. And she makes her lunch, she makes supper. She just ordinarily is a companion. And she walks the dog, which is wonderful. And she's a lovely companion.
I love her. She's fantastic, and she's doing a good job.
Welcome back to Senior Care Insights. We now have Audrey Kingdon here from Harmony Cares Hospice, and she's going to be talking to us today about myths about hospice. Welcome, Audrey.
Hi, Deb. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Harmony Cares Hospice.
Sure. So I am a community liaison, now titled Enterprise Sales Specialist. And basically, I'm just out in the community and I'm talking to families and doctors and case managers about hospice and home health, helping them to understand what's available to them through their insurance, giving them information, education, so they can make better decisions for their loved ones and potentially themselves.
Okay. So we know there are a lot of myths out there about hospice. So one of them I've heard is that hospice is a place. And can you explain whether that's a myth or not?
So that is definitely a myth. You do not have to have hospice in a hospice house. If you have the support and your desire is to stay at home, we are definitely there to support that person's decision and help them and bring that hospice care to them. So hospice is not a place. It's wherever a person calls home, whether that's in a community or they decide to go to an inpatient hospice house, but also if they decide to stay in their home.
Okay. Another myth is it's that hospice is really only for cancer patients.
So this is a pretty big one. People tend to just think of a couple of diagnoses that they think qualifies for hospice. And really, it's any life-threatening illness. There is a point where maybe that diagnosis doesn't have the prognosis of 3 months or 6 months or less, but really any life-threatening illness is appropriate for hospice care. The goal is to provide that comfort and the resources to support that person through what they're going through.
Okay. That's good for people to know. A lot of people also think that hospice is giving up. And in fact, they feel like if they go on hospice, they're going to die the very next day, is what I hear a lot. If I mention somebody might want to consider hospice, they'll say, oh, no, we're not ready for that. But
Sure,
I don't want to die in a day or two. And they just automatically think that. So you want to explain what hospice really does for people?
So unfortunately, this one is somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. People feel that it's giving up, so they wait and wait and wait until the last minute. And so then when they do go on to the services, they're really at the end of that process. And so they do tend to pass away quicker. And it's unfortunate because they didn't get to receive the benefits that they're eligible for, and their family didn't get to receive the support, that was there for them. So, we are here to provide comfort, to provide support during that whole entire process. And really, it's really good for people to understand that just having an informational talking to a hospice company doesn't mean you have to sign up tomorrow, but it does give you the keys that you need to make the right decisions when the time comes. So that's what I really encourage people, is not to think of it as giving up, but to think of it as, I need to have the knowledge to make the right decision when the time comes, to really give my family support, not just me. It's really a comprehensive, benefit that they're missing out on if they wait too long.
Oh, right. Definitely. So a lot of people think hospice is also very expensive and they don't want to spend the money. So is that a myth?
So that is a myth. I think a lot of people base that on, the reality is before they go on hospice, they're probably going to the hospital more. If they are trying different treatments, they've got all of those expenses adding up. But hospice is not expensive. Medicare and Medicaid pay 100%, and most other insurances are going to pay that or very close to it. So it's really something that's there for your benefit. And I really encourage people to not shy away from it. It gets treated kind of like a dirty subject that we don't want to talk about and think about. But it's really something that is available, and you need to make use of it for your own sanity, especially if you're a loved one taking care of someone. You cannot be all to everyone. You really have to allow people to come in and help you and give you that support that you need.
Okay. Another myth that I have heard is that people think if they go on hospice that all their medication and all their treatment is taken away. So what really does happen?
So this myth is really tied into the giving up myth. So people think that, well, if I go on hospice, that means I'm not trying anymore. I'm giving up. I'm ready to go. And so then that kind of perpetuates this myth of they're going to take all my medicine away. That's really not true. Again, if our goal is comfort, so if those medications are needed to provide comfort, those are not going to go away. I think really what it comes down to is maybe a medication that's really an aggressive treatment. That's obviously something we're not going to do, but a maintenance medication that's needed to provide comfort and quality of life, that's going to stay.
Okay, that's good to know. The patient and the family must be ready to die or accept the impending death in order to go on hospice.
Yeah, and this one, it seems pretty obvious, but, there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of different emotions that are tied up into how we deal with death, whether on an individual level, a family level, even as a society. So, everyone goes through this process at their own pace. And, we acknowledge that, and we understand that everyone's going to come into this process at a different point of acceptance. And so, again, we're there to support everyone where they're at, the individual that's on hospice, the family members that are supporting that individual. And it certainly does not mean that any person, whether it's the individual or different members of the family, are going to be ready for that person to pass away.
Okay. Another thing that I've heard somebody say when I'm at a person's home and they hear the word hospice, they think they have to give up their own doctor to go on hospice. And I don't believe that's true.
And you are absolutely correct. That's not true. Certainly sometimes doctors don't necessarily feel comfortable following their patient onto hospice. It really depends on the doctor, but the patient has that choice to, see if their doctor will continue, or they have the option of going with, the doctor with the hospice company. And that's completely up to them and their family in terms of what's going to give them the best care, the best communication. Obviously there's a lot of moving parts. So, it's just making sure that they feel 100% comfortable with that decision, whatever it may be.
Okay. Another myth is that hospice really is just there at the end of life, like the last few days or the last few hours. And we kind of covered that in the beginning here, but really, we've had clients who are on hospice for 2 years. They really didn't expect the person to live. They got the really good care, but then they just kept hanging on. So in your opinion, what should be what should everybody know about when they should start using hospice, let's say?
So that really is a key question, and it is a big myth, and it is kind of tied to some of the other ones. Really, I think what people have to keep in mind is every person is different. We're all individuals, and we're going to, proceed through things in life in a different pace. A prognosis is a general guideline saying you have this disease, it looks like you've got about 6 months or less. That's not always the case. People, like you said, can go much longer than that. A steady decline might be a steady decline over a year versus 6 months. We've also had people that, because they're getting that routine care that they weren't getting, they actually get better and graduate off of services for a little while, meaning that they kind of don't qualify anymore because they're doing so well. But it's not a one-time thing. So definitely, it kind of can come full circle. And when they need us again, we can start those services right back up again. So.
Okay. Now, can you provide some of the services that Harmony Cares does in their hospice program?
So in the hospice program, we, again, as I said, we're there to provide support. We have nurses, we have aides, we have chaplains and volunteers that come in as well. Trying to think, I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. We have social workers and we have a bereavement coordinator. So, all of those people work together to really support the person, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. We just want to be there for them and really help them and their family as they go through the process. So the aides might come in and provide a shower a couple of times a week, or care for, the nurses might come in and care for a wound. There's all these kind of things that are going on, again, all focused on comfort and how can we help the individual and the family.
Okay. And besides hospice, what else does Harmony Cares provide?
Yeah. So they actually have a full service of a medical group that provides in-home, treatments. So if traveling and getting to a primary care physician is becoming an obstacle, we go to them. And then we also have home health and therapy. So if physical therapy, occupational therapy, what's a little bit unique about our home health is that we do have a wound nurse. So that's a big one. And then, of course, our hospice services. And really our goal is, to keep people from having to go into the hospital, and just being able to stay safe, stay healthy, stay comfortable at home.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on our show this week. I want to also thank Matt Paxton and Gary Easterling for being on the show and providing valuable insights in senior care, veteran care, hospice care, and decluttering a home as well for seniors. But I appreciate all of the people who've come and spoken about all of the things that people really need to know about senior care. So this is Deb Moerland signing off. We will see you next time. Time is valuable, especially when it comes to caring for a loved one. Instead of spending your day juggling caregiving tasks, you could actually spend quality time with your family, enjoying the memories, playing games, catching up on work, or simply relaxing and getting recharged. A client review stated, "We used First Light Services to care for my mom for almost 3 years in her home. We were very lucky to find such loving and compassionate caregivers. They were knowledgeable about mom's issues and truly cared about her well-being, as well as helping the family learn how to adapt to her changes. Our caregivers are professionally trained, background checked, must pass a drug test, and are compassionate. We offer flexible plans tailored to meet your family's needs, ensuring that you get time back in your day without compromising the quality of care. Don't let another day slip away being a caregiver. Make the call today and let First Light Home Care of Greater Lansing illuminate the pathway to exceptional home care and give you back the gift of time.